serious. I meant me saying material hotel. I'm intervening.
Interceding.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
How are you doing?
We're good.
We're ready for this lesson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so welcome again to another Bible study, Bible discussion. We are here with lesson 10, which talks about meekness in the crucible. And joining me is another awesome group, similar awesome group of people, starting with
Matilda.
Drum roll.
Matilda! Okay, I feel I have so much energy.
It's okay.
Okay, am I staying around this class?
Yes.
The reason I have so much energy is I'm going to discuss. Cut. I'm going to discuss how to feast on broken bread and pour out wine.
We are feasting on broken bread and poured out
Win.
wine. And next to her is none other than
Fortune.
what
Yeah.
are we discussing?
Our rock and our refuge.
Our rock and our refuge.
Yeah.
Okay. And next in line we have
Jossiah, and I will be talking about interceding for grace. Yeah.
awesome. And none other than
Hello, it's Natujwa, and I'll be talking about a closed mouth.
You haven't asked how we are. Please repeat.
Close mouth.
You missed it. How are you? Okay, so how are you guys?
good.
Are you all good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'll be talking about a closed mouth.
Okay.
Lost.
And last but not least.
I'm Yonazi. I'll be talking about loving those who hurt us.
You sound like you're in a lot
I
of
know,
pain.
right?
It's as if it's something.
Yeah,
exactly.
It is.
Time out.
Okay, so to start us off, Fortune, could you please pray for us and for yourself?
No. These jokes have gone too far.
Couldn't know this was going to be late.
Say that again.
It's the reggae.
Yeah.
Not the tomato.
And tomato?
Don't mention Ezekiel on camera.
Okay, alright.
Did you tell people your empty tags?
Let it out. It's all out? Start us off. Fortune, could you please pray for us?
Let's pray. Our most precious Father, we come before you this evening. We thank you because you're the giver of life. All joy and all happiness comes from you. But what is to be happy without knowing you? We're here to study your word that we might know you. So be with us and our dear viewer as we dissect your word to hear your voice. Speak to us. May your spirit of truth fill us. And may you give us courage to live out the word in the name.
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, this week's lesson is titled Meekness in the Crucible. And our scripture memory text comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 5. And it says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. We could go into a whole thing about understanding what does blessed mean, what does meek mean, what does inherit, what does earth, and all that. But I won't go into that level of discussion today. But the word meek, when you try to find the definitions of it, I think it's such a controversial word, And it's not a word that is constantly used in our society today. When you hear someone is meek, automatically Western society, Western culture, or the culture that most of us have adopted, would switch to thinking of it as something negative. You don't want a meek person. Meek is weak kind of definition. But we only often hear it when you associate it with the Beatitudes or with Moses. He was the meekest or humblest man that ever lived. And it begs the definition, what does this word mean? And as I said, there's so many definitions to it, but one that we're using particularly in this lesson is enduring injury with patience and without resentment. So you're being hurt, but you're enduring it with patience and without resentment. So you're not hating or resenting the person or that which is causing you the injury. And throughout this week's lesson, we're going to, I think, answer 3 main questions. Number 1, what is the relationship between suffering and meekness? Okay? How can we, in our own meekness and broken places, be a witness for others? Because, as I said, the definition says we're enduring injury. So there is definitely something broken, something that is hurt. And from that, how can we, through the hurt that we're going through and through the meekness that we're learning in the Crucible, how can we be a witness for others? So we're also going to learn about the people who have become witnesses for others in the Bible because of the suffering that they've endured. And then, how can meekness be a strength and not a weakness for Christians? Because the world the world associates the word meek with weak. So how can it be a strength and not a weakness for Christians? So we're going to delve into all that beauty. And I think what I would want us to understand, what I would want us all to come out with out of this Bible study is that biblical meekness is all about exercising God's strength under His control. So I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to understanding how can we exercise God's strength but under His control. That should be an interesting lesson to learn. And so to start us off, we are going to have in our discussion as we delve into all of these lessons, about how meekness is essential to Christianity and what is the source of a Christian's meekness. We have Sister Matilda to tell us exactly how we can be meek in suffering.
How we can be meek in suffering. What have you said meekness is?
Meekness is enduring injury with patience and without resentment.
Without resentment. T for tough.
Mm-hmm.
So this day starts us off all the way in Scotland. So there's this famous gent who is an author called Oswald, and he's the one who came up with the title Broken Bread and Poured Out Wine. And I was like, okay, so what exactly does it mean to be a broken bread or a poured out wine? And in his book, there's a devotion that talks about the broken bread. And he literally says that yet God can never make us into wine if we object to the fingers He chose to use to crush us. So you can't be like, oh God, I want you to make me as wine, but be like, no, I don't want this. Do this and start dictating what you want. But generally in this devotion, he was saying, you know what, you chill, let God make you into a bread, into the wine. Just relax and follow his instructions and all that he wants you to do. And even in the Bible, it's seen over and over how God actually molds people mostly and allows people to go through hardships just so his glory can be seen. You can see how Joseph was imprisoned, he was betrayed by his brothers, he was in foreign lands, but at the end of the day we could see how amazing God is. You can see Abraham, you can see, I can name a number of people who had to go through a crucible, but at the end of the day, when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, this is all for God's glory. So, as Lucy was defining what meek is, I was like, okay, let's go through Ezekiel, where he had, I actually had never read the story before I was reading the lesson, where it starts by, in Ezekiel 24, God talks to Ezekiel, and he's like, your wife will die. So that's how God is speaking, like, your wife will die. So he hasn't even taken that in, but God is like, do not mourn, do not cry. Actually, strap something in your head, I think, what does it say? Bind your turban on your head and put your sandals on your feet. Do not cover your lips, and do not eat man's bread of sorrow. So, you know what? Some crucible, you're going to face a crucible, but you know what? I don't want you to react. I want you to go on with your life, go on prophesying and telling people about me, which is very interesting. I'm like, okay. You know, at least if someone is like, okay, mourn, but just for a day, and it actually says, sigh in silence. Like, no one should feel that you are hurt. Because, you have a job to do, and your job is not to mourn for the person you love the dearest. Then, after that, it says, morning came, Ezekiel went. So, imagine you have that message from God, and you're trying to discern it. Like, it's so clear, but you know how God speaks to you, and you're like, but maybe God meant that. So as he's trying to do that, in the morning he went, he spoke to people, and in the evening, the wife died. So, so it's not easy. It's not easy being the broken bread. It's not easy actually being like, okay, God, I am willing to go through this thing so that people can see you. But Ezekiel did it. And in verse 24, it actually says, Ezekiel is a sign to you when you're going through this hardship. According to all that he has done, you shall do. And when this comes, you shall know that I am the Lord God. So basically, Ezekiel is an example to all of us that when you're going through a crucible, when you're going through all this, be meek. Be ready to go through this, knowing that the testing of your faith produces what? Patience. James chapter 1. So, and that was mine, and I think this is a pathway to start learning about meekness, that all this will make you perfect, all this will give you wisdom, but at the end of the day, all this is for God's glory and for God to be seen in someone's life. God is using you and allowing you to go through this hardship so that to save that one lost sheep.
Amen. And I think also the reason why Ezekiel was going through all this, as you said, God was trying to use Ezekiel as a sign, because he was about to allow certain things to happen in Israel. He was about to allow in verse 21, it says that the sanctuary will be ruined, and that which that the Israelites were keeping, like their sons and daughters would fall by the sword, they would die. And God is saying, actually, what I want you to do is what Ezekiel has done, because all of this is for a purpose, and that all of this will come to pass, but I am still in control. And so sometimes God allows us, as we said, for us to go through certain challenges. You're talking about Moses and Joseph and all these people in the Bible who went through crucibles, and they came out and they were testimony to everyone. But it's important to note that they went through these crucibles with meekness. They didn't start complaining to God, why am I going through this? I don't, they were not resenting God for...
They're finding alternatives.
Of course they did, but then eventually they came to learn their lessons. In the case of Abraham, for example, it was Abraham. So through everything, they were going through these crucibles with meekness. So they were embracing that meekness. And so we are also called to the same. We are called to go through the crucibles and the challenges and the tough times that we have in our lives but it is all for the glory of God. It is also people can have a witness in our lives. We become broken bread and poured out our wine for the sake of other people's salvation. I don't know. Yeah. That's what I would say in addition to that.
I love how the last the take home is. It tells you sooner or later life itself breaks us all. So it's just not you. You know when you're going through something you're like, why me? But it's actually everyone goes through it. But at the end of the day, you should just be meek and allow God to take control.
Amen. And so I think this is a nice segue to the next day, where we learn about a specific person in the Bible who went through the most or who did the most. Jossiah, you want to take us through that?
So I'll be taking you through Monday's lesson with the title Interceding for Grace. So it starts off with a really good question. What role do we find Moses playing here? So the question aims at a few specific lines in the Bible. Exodus chapter 32, verse 1 to 14. This is a portion where Moses was up in a mountain talking to God, and the rest Israelites and Aaron were all down the foot of the mountain, and they sort of asked Aaron to make an idol out of all the jewelry that the wives and the daughters had. So it talks about how even with everything that they went through and everything that they saw God did for them, they still didn't really believe or want to put faith on what God has put forward, or rather has prepared for them later. Yeah. But so from these verses we learn, the lesson says we learn two things, and I think the second one for me is really where it hits home. I'll start off with the second one, which the second lesson, which talks about so this passage shows opposition is disobedience is a call to reveal grace. And grace, and this is where the next sentence really hits home for me. Grace is needed when people least deserve it, but when they least deserve it is also the time we feel least like offering it to other people. So when someone's hurt you, when someone's done something bad to you, that's when you least want to really forgive them, be kind to them, forgive them, and understand their side of things. And I think this lesson, the second lesson from Exodus 32, 1 to 14 is, for me, again, really hits home, because I've been at a place where someone's done wrong to me, and I can't really find it deep down in myself to feel I need to forgive them or talk to them, or So I think that's really the lesson here. That's really important.
I think the kind of the way in Exodus 32 when Moses intercedes for the Israelites, I think for me he was ready to lay down his life. And not only once, it was so many times, so many examples in the Bible in Exodus when Moses is ready to say, God, take my life instead of the Israelites. These are your people. Why would you want to take them back? Why would you want to kill them? All the nations will be like, hey, this God of theirs doesn't love them. So it is for your own sake, God. These are people who had blamed him for all the wrongs that were going on as they were traveling, but yet he found it in himself.
No wonder he says he was the most humble of all men. Now it makes sense.
Moses was the most humble.
But the Israelites were tea for tough.
Hey, tea for tough with that AFF.
one thing to be willing to sacrifice your life for the people that you love. But it's another thing to be willing to sacrifice your salvation for the people that you love. Because Moses, there was a time where Moses told God, like, take my name off. Don't take the name of those people who have sinned and those people who keep complaining and blaming me.
Yeah.
I'd rather I get lost, but they get to heaven. It's like very unfair.
Yeah.
But that's the level that God wants us to reach. That's the level of meekness and God's character that we ought to reflect.
And so we are called again. I think that the questions in this week, they really make you think about your own life and how you're going to apply this in your life. And it calls us to think about the people around you who we think are the least deserving of grace. That person, that one. Who you think, hey, grace and them.
I don't know who you're thinking about.
Different WhatsApp groups. That person. And the question is, how can you, with meekness and selfless humility, be a revelation of God's grace to them? So when we are interceding for people with grace, or interceding for grace on their behalf, we are showing meekness. This is seeing them through the eyes that God has, like the God sees them through. And when we do that for them, then we are revealing that, by the way, there's a God who sacrificed his life for you. Even no matter what you've done, no matter what you've been through, I think that's a deep calling. It's a tough calling, but it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy to be the one who's
always takes the blow and being the bigger person.
Being the bigger person. Actually now, so we're talking about people who we love. So Yonazi, take us through meekness before our enemies. Like, how do we deal with people who we don't love or who don't love us?
People who we hate.
Yeah, but the opposite of love is not hate. I'm just gonna put it out there.
So your life.
Yeah, I can't do the real thing in front of the camera. So. Anyways, think of one person that you don't love. Do you have? Don't mention it. Just think of them.
Yeah.
I know some of you have like 7 names. I know that no name is supposed to appear. Ideally.
Actually, yeah.
That doesn't have any.
Like, I've literally thought, I'm just like, no, I don't have any.
Seriously.
That's how
Serious.
Anyways, loving those who hurt us. There's this. Let me start by reading this statement. Someone once said, "Loving our enemies does not mean that we are supposed to love the dirt in which the pearl is buried. Rather, it means that we love the pearl which lies in the dust." Okay? So, when we look at our so-called enemies, we're not supposed to have enemies, by the way, but if the people that we list, like on the list of people who we love, they are like down there, okay? How do we view them? Like, do we look at them as pearls in the dirt, or do we look at them as dirt surrounding the pearls? When God looks at us, God sees the pearls among the dirt. And it says here that God does not love us because we are by nature lovable. I mean, of all creation, humanity was like the least. Just not lovable at all. But we become lovable because he loves us. Now, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus, we were talking about the Sermon on the Mount, actually, Matthew chapter 5 onwards. One of the things one of the teachings that was revolutionary in that time is found in Matthew 5, verse 43 up to 48. So, we're talking about loving our enemies, yeah? So Jesus starts by saying, "Ye have heard that it has been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy." Now, this is something that was taught back then in the synagogues. by the Pharisees. It was actually taught in church. So it was something that was expected as a Jew. This is something that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Okay?
Yeah.
Now Jesus says, but I say unto you, love your enemies. So I'm sure it was like, what? Bless them that curse you. Yeah? Pray for them that despitefully use you. Do good to them that hate you. Okay? And then it says that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. So it means if you don't do those things,
You're not
you're not a
sure.
child of God. We tend to assume that we are automatically children of God. You're just born, you're a child of God. Which is partially true, just as how, salvation is offered to everyone, but it's not like everyone will be saved. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, the offer
Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me?
the offer of being
I didn't
children
lie
of-
to you.
Were you in his list of like anything?
I don't know.
So the offer of being children of God is there. God has given everyone, but not everyone just becomes a child of God by default. There are qualifications, and one of the things Jesus says here that you have to love your enemies. You have to bless them that curse you. You have to do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you. And then he even gives an example that this is not just an arbitrary command that I just decide from up there, love your enemies. But he says, like your father, for he makes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust. So he says, even I am doing it for you. Times when you say, I hate God, I don't love God at all. This is, that's God still wakes you up. God still gives you food. God still blesses your work. And he says, do the same. And then he continues to say, for if you love only those who love you, then what reward have ye? Do not the publicans also do the same? And if you so he says, what makes you different from everyone else? Think of the most, the baddest person, not baddest, worse, sorry.
Sporting was ready.
Yeah.
I was looking for equal.
Baddest is also used, from anything. The worst person who I won't mention names on camera, but the worst person, the cruel. Even that person loves their friends or their daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this meme I saw of this very tough, buffed up guy, and he's playing with his daughter. So, he looks very tough, but he's wearing a dress, he's wearing a crown and a wand, and he's sitting in those tiny chairs drinking tea with the daughter. And there was a funny caption there, but the message there was that even the toughest guy, in front of the daughter, becomes, the sweetest person you've ever met. So Jesus is saying, if even the evil people do this, then what makes you different? If you say you're a Christian, then you should go the extra mile and love your enemies. And then it finishes by saying, be therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is also
Perfect.
perfect. So perfection, in the process of getting perfection that we all are looking for, to be like the Father, we have to love our enemies. We have to love those who hurt us. And this is what meekness in the crucible helps us to. There are some crucibles that are brought by our enemies, that are brought by people, And while we're enduring them, how should we be responding to them? We should not be, reciprocating the bad actions. And to top it all off, Christ Himself, again, God always does, and then tells us to do the same. He doesn't just arbitrarily tell us to do stuff. So Christ Himself came on this earth, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So while the same people who were blaspheming and slapping Him and spitting on Him, He was actually dying for them at that time. At that very moment when they were crucifying Him, He said, Father, forgive them. And He meant it. He didn't just say it, He really meant it. And He said, now go, follow my steps, do the same. So this is the character that God wants to reproduce in us as we're going through the crucible. And I'll finish with this last sentence. It says, To be perfect in God's sight is to love the opposition. And to do this takes a meekness of heart that only God can give. Yeah.
Amen. And I think it closes off with the perfect thing at the end. What changes do you have to make so that you can have the kind? What changes must you make so that you can allow God to give you the kind of meekness of heart that will help you to have the right attitude towards your enemies? What specific changes do I need to make for that person, those people that I listed down? What changes do I need to make in my life so that I can allow God to work in me? Because as you said, it's only God who can help us to have that kind of meekness that will love our enemies and care for those who persecute us. Yeah. And love means showing certain actions towards them. What changes do you have to make? Deep questions there. People really want to answer questions.
It's hitting home.
It's hitting home.
We have a closed mouth.
Oh yeah, clearly. Nice segue into a closed mouth by Natujwa. You don't want to just shut us up today. Okay, no problem. It's Natu.
So, we're in Wednesday, whereby talks about a closed mouth. So it's starting with our quarter. It says the most powerful examples of meekness in the Crucible come from Jesus. When he said to come and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. Well, but with this comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 29. He meant it in ways we probably can't imagine. The English, So, I will repeat. It says, the most powerful examples of meekness in the Crucible come from Jesus. When he said to come and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. Well, by that comes from Matthew 11, verse 29. He actually meant it in ways whereby we can't imagine. So, as we have learned from Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Monday, we have learned that a humble person has no pride in his heart. While a humble person also is patient and kind to the people who hurt him or her. So I'm really hoping that we're all humble. We're humble, isn't it?
Yes.
We're humble.
I'd like to
But
say
Jesus just said I am meek.
I am meek. So he knew.
We're following Christ still. So if you can say it.
I am sorry.
Like Moses, a harmless
Okay.
bold.
Yes. So, a humble person is patient and kind to the people who hurt him or her. Also, a humble person has no pride in his or her heart. But at the same time, Jesus is the most powerful example we have of a humble person to date. I think at times when we hold grudges inside our heart, we actually at times really get hurt, isn't it? Because there's this thing whereby when you hold, you're just like, hey, why am I holding something that is really, really terrific inside me? Why is it all hurting me? I think we always suffer when we carry anger in our hearts. Yes, we do, because I always do. So,
Carry the anger or suffer?
no, both of them. I suffer when I carry anger.
Okay.
So the anger makes me suffer.
Okay.
It's the mathematical.
Yeah, now it is.
Okay, so what we have to do if we feel the anger is destroying us, or maybe if we feel the anger is making us suffer to the maximum, we must always believe that our Father in heaven is in control. But also at the same time, He will help us when doing. So So He will help us when doing the will, whereby bless other people and bring honor to His name. So at the moment whereby we feel maybe someone came to me, or should I say fortune, came to me in a really rude way.
Okay, always does.
Yes, exactly.
Lies.
So now I really don't want to keep the anger inside me. So in one or the other, I think I'll go to God and be like, God, please help my mouth. Please help me, cause I won't want to be rude to Fortune back, because Fortune was rude to me. So why should I be rude to Fortune? So in one or the other, I'll ask God to control my mouth, or I'll ask God to control me, or maybe I'll ask God to help me like hold the anger that, okay, this man came to me and just said 1, 2, 3. So now, God, please help me, so that I want to be rude. So it's us asking God that, God, can you please be in control in one or the other? But also at the same time, we should be asking God, okay, because he came to me all rude. God, please help me do it on your will, or maybe in your will. I shouldn't be doing it in my will. Because if I do it in my will, it may cause more trouble. Or maybe it may cause more damage. Or maybe it may even make Fortune feel way worse. You see, whereby at the same moment, I don't want him to feel that grudge, that okay, I caused my young sister, or maybe Natujwa, this and that. But yes, so at the same time, in this verse, whereby I think it's whereby we come to it from 1 Peter, okay, chapter 2, verse 18 to 25, whereby Peter here is offering something. Actually, he is offering a really surprising advice to us. Like he's saying that we shouldn't fight back against the ones who blame us, or maybe who cause suffering unto us. But we should show a powerful proof that God is living inside us, and God is love. You see? So with the 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 18 to 25, Peter is telling you, even with whatever that you're passing through, or maybe even with anything that comes in front of you, just try ask God that in one or the other, can you please just be in control? But also at the same time, can you please just help me not fight back against the person?
I have a question. Yeah. You know, when siblings, I'm not thinking anything like Natujwa, when they annoy you and test you, you keep your closed mouth.
Yes.
Yeah? But there's this thing that Natujwa does. Have you seen anything with the eyes?
Actually, my siblings always say my face talks.
Yes. So is that good? Because yeah, it's a closed mouth, but yeah.
It's still communicating.
Exactly. They just understand that this.
So is that fine?
I think it's fine because I'm not.
Why do I feel like there's something personal going on?
Okay, so I think answering to Matilda's, I think it's fine because I'm not using my mouth.
No.
Oh wait, Lucy, am I using my mouth?
I think the essence of the lesson here is not about literal closed mouth.
Yes,
It
but
is about
it's how you control.
Yeah, it's
whatever
about
that-
how are you allowing God to take charge of your perspective of the situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even the eyes.
So even the eyes should be not closed, but should not.
Oh, I feel attacked. Now I feel
You are.
You know, when
No, you're not.
when Cain killed Abel, and God appeared to Cain, what did he ask him?
Where's your brother?
No.
Before that.
Your countenance.
Why is your countenance fallen? So even the face communicated his anger. And God said, no, sin is at your door.
That's why my father always tells me, Lucy, just smile. Like, really?
Oh, now you've reminded me.
Shout
And then
out to
smile.
Shout out to Mwaitete.
Oh my God.
No, but that has always emphasized. I know we're stepping into your day, but my father always reminded me, because I'm always a person who, as Natu, like you can see it in my face. But if I'm not talking, I have a judgy face. I will show my emotions. I'm just like, why? So everybody always told me, like, no, say, learn to smile. Even if something is not right,
Yes,
learn to smile. Put a smile on your face, because it's like fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like, the more you try to express the joy and love, the more it actually become true in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amen. So to finish it up, I think we actually know that being all meekly is not easy. But in all situations, or in all unjust situations, we must believe our Father in heaven is in control. But also at the same time that He will act on our behalf when it's according to His will. So with anything that comes in front of us, we should just know that He's in control, and we shouldn't be all that out of His presence. We should let His presence stay inside us, and we should let His will do it.
Yes. And I think that is one of the hardest things in humanity, when we see, especially when we see an injustice happening all around you in our society. And you have sometimes we're having this discussion off screen earlier, where we're talking about, you know, what do you do when you're faced with injustice, and injustice is like right in your face. And for example, if there are issues like domestic violence and you know, like real things that happen to people, and again, the call is not to just lay back and let it all happen. It's about trusting that God will give you the power and the understanding and the wisdom to handle the situation at the time, at the moment, when you know, in the right way that needs to be handled, and then trusting that He is also in control, and that He will act on your behalf when it's according to His will and according to His timing, which I think it's not easy stuff. It's not easy stuff to do. Yeah. And so
just ask God.
yeah. And so where do you get the power to do this? Where do you get the power to be meek? Fortune, you want to take us through that?
Yeah. You probably mentioned this at the beginning, that sometimes people who are meek are looked at as being weak, right? And that may, in some cases, be true, depending on what your supposed meekness is founded upon. What is your basis for appearing meek? In this case, I should say appearing, because we've had the definition, you know, that is enduring injury with patience. So if you're not doing it with patience, if you're doing it out of resignation, there is nothing I can do about it. This is just my cup of tea. So you know, that's really may not necessarily be meekness. That would actually be weakness. But here's really where the key point is that the people who are meek are patient and are without resentment because they look forward to something, because they're based off of something. And I like the statement here that says meekness and humility, far from being attributes of weakness, are actually the most powerful manifestation of a soul firmly grounded on the rock. I heard an example recently that somebody gave of it's like when you're fighting, like a child comes at you and they're like punching him, like they really like they want to fight you. You're really not gonna punch them back, because like I don't have to, you know. I have something that is much. I know what is in me. I know that I am stronger than you, so I'm not gonna try to prove it, you know. And of course, they even say it at the beginning of the day that sometimes this arrogance and pride that tries to prove things actually comes from a sense of insecurity that people do have. So I think it's number one of the key lessons that we ought to take away with us here is that it is not a weakness to be meek, especially if it is founded on God, who gives us strength, who gives us hope. You know, if you read Psalm 62. I'm going to read a few verses. Verse 1 says, "Truly my soul waiteth upon God, from Him cometh my salvation." Verse 2, He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense, I shall not be greatly moved. So if you know this for a fact, then you really are not moved by anything that happens. He says in verse 6, He only is, of course he repeats that. Verse 7 says, "In God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength and my refuge is in God." And he says, "Trust in Him at all times." This is to say it, ye people, pour out your heart before him, God is a refuge for us. So the idea is that being meek is not weak, because of course you trust in God and therefore you have this strength that you know of. It's like if I know there's actually two things that come out of knowing you have strength. One is arrogance, and the other is meekness. And of course God's way is meekness. But now the question is, how does this come to happen? Because we all sort of intellectually know that God is there, God is powerful, that at some point these things will come to an end. One thing that I've realized is very powerful, and I think this is brought out a lot in a particular quotation here from Desire of Ages, page 301. It says, "If we possess the humility of our Master, we shall rise above the slights, the rebuffs, the annoyances, to which we are daily exposed, and they will cease to cast a gloom over the spirit." The highest evidence of nobility in a Christian is self-control. He who under abuse or cruelty fails to maintain a calm and trustful spirit robs God of his right to reveal in him his own perfection of character. I think I want to repeat that statement because it's very key. He who, under abuse or cruelty, fails to maintain a calm and trustful spirit, robs God of his right to reveal in him God's own perfection and character. Lowliness of heart is the strength that gives victory to the followers of Christ. Pavel Goya, one of my favorite speakers, once said something that shocked me and still rings in my head to date. He said, if the self dies, you cannot be offended. We get offended because we have a self that we think should not be attacked. But when you realize that of your own are nothing, and you only are something because of God, then any attack that is directed seemingly addressed to you is actually addressed to God. And so you step out of the equation and say, I have nothing to fight for here, because I'm like, it's about him. So he's going to deal with you at his right time if he so chooses, or maybe he's just going to help you. So all I'm going to try to do is try to say, okay, what does he think right now? He feels pity for you because he sent his son to die for you. So that's what I'm going to share in. But I'm not going to try to fight you back, because it is not me that you're trying to fight against. And so one thing that really jumped at me, and I'm trying to connect it with this quotation here, is first of all, you got to be trustful of God, that God is going to handle this. This is against him. If it is injustice, it is against him, and he will deal with it in the right way. And then now give him the opportunity. By you stepping out of the equation, you're giving him the opportunity to then be seen. And when he is seen, miracles happen. People get changed. We're talking about interceding with grace. Or maybe just people's conscience, burns them, and that takes them wherever it goes, like it did with Judas Iscariot. One way or another, God's character and glory is revealed through what we do. So I think the key thing here that we're taking away with, apart from just understanding that God is our refuge, and that's where meekness should be based off, is the fact that we ought to let the self die. Galatians 2 verse 20 says, "For I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, but not I, but Christ lives in me." And somewhere in this lesson it talks about, says in the last paragraph, God's servants must arm themselves with the mind of Christ. Now, how do you arm yourself with the mind of Christ? You gotta let yours die. You gotta let your ways of dealing with things be thrown off the window. So then you adopt the mind of Christ. And when you adopt the mind of Christ, then you're able to reflect the character of Christ. You're able to be a child of God, as we're told in Matthew 5. At the end of the day, when you don't, work on the principle of a tooth for a tooth. And I think one other useful practical tip tip that I have found from scripture itself is from Philippians 2 verse 3. Philippians 2 verse 3, which says, just getting there in a moment. Philippians 2 verse 3, let nothing be done. No, let me start first with the New International Version, which says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, right? That is being humble. Value others above yourselves. The New King James Version says, but in lowliness of mind. We've talked about lowliness of heart. Mind and heart are the same thing. But in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. I have practically, and this is why I wanted to sort of come to the end with this point, is because in my own experience, when I have struggled to be kind to people who have hurt me, I have had to work on this principle by trying to ask myself, how are these people better than I am? I have to literally stop myself and think about somebody who has hurt me and be like, what is the other side of the equation? And that has, in practice now, worked for me. And it has helped me understand, okay. And of course, the other side of that statement is, how evil am I also in likeness to them? Where do I also fall short? So that I don't look at them as less deserving of grace than I do. And when that thought comes to mind, I'm like, okay, but we are all human. We both need grace. So I do not have to project, or rather, I do not have to cast condemnation on them just as much as I would wish for condemnation not to be cast at me. I would love to understand and believe that their situation is much more complex. I may not agree with it, but I think it's much more complex, as I think my situations are complicated. Because usually this element of judgment and all this comes from a place of simplifying that, somebody else, what they did is purely wrong, and it deserves condemnation. But I think it's much more complicated than that. So I think if we hold on to, number one, the idea that God is our refuge and it is not our place, it is Him, and then we let the self die, and we consider other people to be much better than we are, then we would actually be able to put in practice this meekness that we are talking about.
Okay, so that's something to write home about. When self dies, then it's gone. Just steps and like, I'm gonna do nothing. I was like, let's lift me up. You gonna do it?
On that note,
Yes.
the Bible says, the dead know not anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
You don't gotta come out as
Mm-hmm.
that.
In fact, the line before that, the living know they shall die.
So, and it's interesting, in Bible commentaries it says many, so many, have been baptized, but they were buried alive.
Mm-hmm.
Self did not die. Therefore, they did not rise to the newness of life in Christ.
I'm sorry, no.
So, like, why are you attacking us?
Many have been baptized, but they were buried alive. There's the death,
And then
there's
there's
the
the
resurrection. So if you don't die, nothing comes out. A plant, if you don't die, there's nothing.
There's nothing going.
So many of us we are the walking dead. We are like zombies. So if you really want to, what Fortune said is very important. If you really want to see or to know if self is dead or not, how do you react? When someone does something bad to you, when you're like, me? Then
how could they do that to me?
Then you need to, yeah.
Without straying from the topic, because this might be a whole topic for another day, I just want to highlight how I think in our world today we're very lost with this idea of self-worth and self-love. I think it's a very it's one of those things that is a bit of truth mixed with error, and has led us far away from what Scripture is really about, in terms of because we're told, fight for your rights, defend yourself. And there's, I don't want to really go deep into that, but the idea here that requires us to first of all consider other people better than ourselves. The idea that we ought to die so that Christ can live in us.
the idea that we ought to suspend some things that we think would be good for us for the sake of other people. The idea that we would turn another cheek to somebody, I think are ideas that are foreign to the things that we learn. So let's take them with a grain of salt and really compare them to scripture.
There's something I'll have to practice, because whenever someone cuts me off in traffic, I ask myself, who do you even think you are? I'll probably even try to roll down the window and say, hey, who do you think you are?
That was really sick.
No, but like in my head, I usually who does he even think he is?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think I'll have to put that one in practice, where I'll just have to, think of myself or think of the other person being better than I am. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my takeaway is I am a walking zombie most of the time.
Yeah.
That's what you took.
She took this.
you got to handle this. Okay. So I think.
Sorry, but just one last thing. I think Fortune, you talked about this sentence, God's servant must arm themselves with the mind of Christ. So okay, in practice, or rather what I've learned so far is trusting, like sort of me putting trust in God even with the little things has helped me to trust God in the
Bigger things.
like bigger things, and to just a really might be a really small, and I don't want to say stupid, but example is I misplace my car keys a lot. And so before I go to bed and I go to bed really late, I just say it in my head nowadays, like, God, please help me, allow me to find the keys really quickly as I'm stepping out the house. And it's gotten really easier for me to actually find the keys in the house. I don't place them where they should be placed in the first place, but but it's become very easier that way. Whenever I trust God that I'm really tired right now and I'm not gonna put them in the right place, but I know He'll really help me. And I think that's for me. That's how I get closer to to God and to allow God into my life, even with the little things. And I know with the big things, it's going to be easier for Him.
Him showing you the big.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, it takes a lot more to trust in God in the smaller things than in the bigger things. Because every human being, every reasonable human being knows that they have limitations. Everybody knows that. Like literally, even the president of the United States knows that there's certain things he can't do. But, of course, and a lot actually, more so than we think. But there's the smaller things that we tend to think that, I can do this. And for you to think that I can actually not do that except He empowers me to do it. That is what faith is really about. And so the fact that you have made it a habit every single day to say, God help me find my keys, not that, I just need to figure this thing out. That is faith.
Trusting the things over you have not.
Can that be a thumbnail?
No, I mean, if you're not dead to self, literally.
I think we need to have a video on self. It's a very deep,
definitely.
It's a deep thing.
I daily all meant what he said.
I think this has been a good reminder for me personally, because I think I was headed somewhere not really right in terms of dying to self. And I think just as we wrap up this lesson that took a turn somewhere, I don't know, took a turn, but like it really evolved in such a beautiful way. The only way for us to be meek in spirit, to have that meekness, is when we have Christ in us, when we die to self and have Christ imbued in us. That is the only way we'll be able to let God take control of whatever injustice or whatever situation we have in our lives. So I don't know, do we want to go around and wrap up, and does anyone have like a final point? Or do you want to go like one by one?
Will you give us an option?
I don't know, do you want options?
Now everybody knows we have nothing to say.
Yeah, but but I think we going to remember that. Going to remember that the meekness is essential to being a Christian, right? It is what made Christ, one of the things that attributes that made Christ Christ.
In fact, if I may, now that you offered us in, before you take it away, the verse that we were just talking about of Philippians 2:3 about no, you can't show it on the face. You're supposed to smile. The verse about lowliness of mind and esteeming others as better than yourself. Just a couple of verses down, that is when we find the verse, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. In other words, the mind that was in Jesus was a mind of humility. Or rather, one of the key things that defined the mind of Jesus was a mind of humility. Even though he was literally God incarnated, even though he was doing all, every single time he did things, he kept saying, it's God the Father, it's God. God enables me. I'm like, but you're God. Flex it a bit, you know? No, it's God. Of my own, I do nothing. It's God. That is the mind of Christ. Okay, now I've made my closing remarks. Like I had something.
No, but thank you for that addition. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And as we said, we definitely need to have more detailed, more topical discussions on certain things, including self-worth. Yeah, I think I'm still struggling with that. Like I'm struggling because I've done psychology as a course, so it's like what I'm trying to say about it.
I know.
But it's okay.
I think they anyone who has an interesting topic that they want us to discuss, they can link it on the comment section below, and we can always discuss it.
I'm gonna point to the comment section below.
Okay. All right. So to close us off, Matilda, could you please pray for us?
Sure. Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we say thank you for an amazing Bible study. We say thank you for the viewers who have learned a lot about meekness. This is a practical lesson, and we pray that you guide us and teach us to be meek, teach us to be humble. It is in Jesus Christ we pray and believe. Amen.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, what she said. So subscribe, like, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Say.
Turn on the notification bell.
Ding! And and they should also not forget to call their friends so that they watch together.
Or
Have
maybe
an
just,
actual Bible study.
or maybe just share the link like a 21st century.
Wow, for
Bye guys.